And we're live. Hello, everyone.
Hey, welcome to Pacecast, our weekly podcast live on YouTube every Tuesday night about RC drifting with myself, Tijs. You can find me normally on NJRC. And then through the magic of the internet, on the other side of my screen is James from RC Boss
That's
and
me.
this channel, Pace. So yeah, welcome and good night. Again, we have a busy schedule for you guys. We also asked for some input, which we'll show you later in this episode. And I have to say that I really appreciate all of the different pictures and stories and stuff you guys have sent in this week. It was a lot more than normal, which is amazing, and I hope this trend continues. And obviously, also we still have the COVID-19 coronavirus stuff going on. So I'm sure this will come up. Obviously, you cannot really have a live show or blog or vlog or whatever at the moment without mentioning it. But we try to do it in a positive way. But yeah, as always, we have also some news and some new products, which actually surprised me. I was sort of expecting it to be a little bit quiet at this time with new product releases, but there's a few things.
Just a few.
And yeah, like I said, we'll go over some of the stuff you guys have sent in. Yeah.
I guess we should dive straight in.
Go ahead. Yeah, and maybe just a quick note, we also have the live stream and the live chat going on.
Yep.
So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to post them there. And if we don't get to them this week, then we'll get to it after, maybe next week. Or yeah, let's dive straight in, indeed.
So first up, we got a new bumper brace from Revti, which actually looks super cool. I think it's all carbon with an aluminium plate. But sticking with their super lightweight theme, it's I think it looks awesome. And they're making a real good effort at the moment doing the milled carbon with the sort of stepped look, which the upcoming chassis conversion makes good use of as well. So I think this looks wicked.
This looks great, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
it's also pretty cheap, which is kind of nice. It's I think they said it's under 3,000 yen, which is pretty cheap. That's going to be, what's that, like 28 euros, something like that?
Something like that, yeah. It surprised me because most of the Revti stuff so far has been quite affordable, actually.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's part of their strategy is to get some lower price products out to the market and get the brand well known and just make it something a bit more accessible and simple. Also, because the designs aren't super complicated, they're cheaper to produce, which means they can also produce them faster, and it's a good strategy for sure. But yeah, so this looks pretty interesting to me. There is one thing I'm not so keen on with it. I love the design. I like the shape, and I do, like I say, I like the milled carbon.
In this picture, actually, one thing stands out to me, and it's the weave of the carbon.
Yes.
Which might be a bit tricky because it might not match everything else on your chassis.
It's probably not going to match, but it's also, this is a prototype, so it might be different. I'm assuming it's a prototype anyway. But I think it's a cool looking weave for sure. I think it looks pretty good. But the plate, I think, is reversible, they said. So if you don't want the Revti logo, you can just flip it over. I'm assuming you could also not run it, but then you'd have to fit some nuts to attach the plate to or the brace itself to the chassis deck, which would probably not look as good as just having the brace on itself or the plate on.
Here you can see it's milled out from the bottom, so
yes,
that's probably why it's pretty light.
Yeah, for sure. Now onto the bit I don't like is the fact that it doesn't sit flush. It just sits on top of your chassis deck. Now this is kind of fine for more advanced people or people running on hard surfaces, but people running on carpet, if they run their chassis low, then there's a good chance that will dig into the carpet when they brake hard. But also, if you clip a curb or something, are you going to take it out and just punt it and unstick it from the track or something like that? So it's not ideal. I'd have preferred to have seen that smoothed off somehow, but then that obviously would put the price up quite considerably. So I get why they haven't done it. But this is the first time in quite a while I've seen a bumper brace that doesn't fit smoothly into the chassis deck. So I
actually have a chassis that has this exact same problem because there were two versions of the bumper, one for the thicker 3mm plate and one for the thinner 2.5mm. And if you get it wrong, half a mil sticks out, and that's basically just your top layer of the bottom deck, or
Yeah.
the bottom layer of the bottom deck. And I've seen it split
Yeah.
pretty badly, just from hitting curbstones or anything small on the track.
Yeah, I don't think
want.
it's a huge problem. And like I say, I think more advanced guys won't have an issue with this because they'll just make sure they set their car up so that it doesn't dig into the carpet, or they have their ride height high enough that it's not going to cause them an issue. But I think because this is a lower price product, it's quite likely that some beginner guys will pick this up as a nice sort of first mod for their YD2 or something. And they're the guys that might end up taking things out on chassis or tearing carpet or something. So definitely, if you end up with one of these, just be a bit careful, check your ride height, and make sure that you're not going to end up causing any damage to someone's track, because it's surprisingly easy to tear a carpet when your car's going full speed at the end of the straight and you dab the brakes and something bites into the carpet. I've seen body shells slice through carpet before along the side skirts. So it's always a basic respect thing of making sure your car's not going to damage a track, but you need to be aware that your car could damage a track, which a lot of beginner guys aren't, I think. So it's normally obviously not an intentional thing. But yeah, aside from that, I think this thing looks wicked. And actually they've put a weight up without the body post, but with the plate of just 7.25 grams, which is crazy. That's as light as you'll ever get. And actually, they did post a picture of the standard plastic YD2 bumper brace, and I think that was 15 or 16 grams.
Wow.
But I didn't include it because but I didn't include it because this doesn't have any screws in there, and the other picture did. So it's not quite a direct comparison, but this is a really lightweight part for sure. And I think when everyone sees their full chassis, I don't know if they've posted any photos of everything, but I think when they see the complete sort of design, they're going to be pretty happy with it. I think it looks really nice, and they've taken this sort of stepped milling all the way through all the parts, and it looks great because it's the first time I've seen that done across all the parts on a chassis before.
So maybe one thing to look into is how to glue the edges of your carbon fiber, because that's something I think a lot of drift guys don't know. No. But that might be a good thing to do if you're going to run this bumper.
Yeah, it's actually something I've never done that, but I notice it when other people do. It's one of the first things I spot on somebody else's chassis because it just finishes the carbon in a way that makes it look much higher quality, and it obviously adds a bit of strength, I guess, and protects the edges. But then, having said that, I've also never really damaged a lower deck on anything drifting. I've scratched them up a few times when I've sort of been outdoors, but I've never damaged anything, never peeled a layer or delaminated anything or anything like that. But yeah, I think this is pretty cool, and for under €30, or I'm going to guess with taxes and shipping maybe €35, this is pretty good. And it looks nice as well. I also like the fact there's a separate aluminium plate. It's not just, they could have just engraved the Revti logo, but to actually have a separate plate to make it look nicer, I think is kind of cool. Although I do wish they'd just get rid of the R from the logo. It seems always weird to me that it's R Revti.
Revti.
Yeah. Unless that's maybe the name and I've read it wrong all along, but I don't think so.
Who knows?
They've also come out with some new spring retainers.
These look amazing to me.
Yeah, it's got along with the new spring set that we talked about last week or the week before. And like I say, like you say, I think these look great. Certainly a different look to all the other spring retainers I've seen for quite a while. The only thing is I've looked for some information on these today, and maybe I missed it, but I can't see exactly what you're getting. I'm assuming you're getting what you see there in the picture of a set of 4 and then 2 with extended or for shorter springs essentially, but they might be a separate part. I'm not entirely sure at this point. The latest on Takehiro's blog just says that they're waiting for the English translation to be done before they announce more information. So and I think he posted that today.
There's 3 different heights, right? They're looking at the picture. So there's one that like drops down, one that seems normal, and one that raises the spring up. So for shorter springs. Yeah.
So it's there might be sold as pairs. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't spot that they were the smaller ones were actually different. But yeah, you're right. So it could be that they just sell them as pairs, or I'm not sure. But that information I'm sure will come soon.
Yeah, and
probably before the
it's
end
cool
of this
because
week.
these actually they have the springs captured from the outside of the spring instead of from the inside, which you normally
Yes.
have on
Yeah.
spring retainers. So these might actually come off easier because I don't know if you ever struggle with that the springs are stuck on the spring retainer and you sort of have to peel in between with your nail to sort of get them off. At
Maybe,
least
but
I have that problem sometimes.
I think you're probably going to end up with a similar problem with these, except for the spring is sort of tucked in a lip, so it's going to be it's probably easier to get off. But I think you're going to have to lift the spring, maybe not higher, but I don't know. It's going to be a similar issue, I think, just slightly different. The only thing I'm not entirely sure of is whether they're going to be picky about spring diameters, because obviously on traditional spring retainer, it just has to be wider than the step on the center, whereas these, it has to be wider than the step, but then narrower than the lip. So they will work, and obviously they're designed for the Revti spring set, I'm sure. So if your spring retainers work with those springs, any other springs that work with those other retainers will also work with these. But I think they look cool, and I'm sure they're also super lightweight. They look pretty thin.
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. They might just be clever design, but they look super thin. And I'm sure more information will come out about these because they're being very generous with the information they're giving about their spring sets. I think they've put out some decent graphs about which springs they recommend for a YD2, depending on whether you're using inner mount or inner holes or outer holes. And
maybe we're just a little bit too quick with the Revti news. Maybe we should wait a couple weeks every time so they have the time to send the information. Or maybe just send us the information straight away, Revti. That would be even better.
That would be helpful. I think the only problem if we did it the other way is I think they're pretty quick at getting products out, so people would have them before we announce them. But no, I think it. Hopefully, as they sort of mature a little bit, I think their information sharing will become a bit more streamlined. But I think they're being so new and especially with what's going on at the moment, I'm sure they're just keen to get information out there as quickly as possible so that people can place orders as early as they possibly can to help support the new company. I think it's very difficult when you launch a new company like that to be able to keep things secret for long enough to be able to just launch. You have to tickle the information out as you get it, just purely to drum up the interest with enough time to get orders in. Next up,
more news, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is stuff from Razor Performance, the guys from Sweden. They do a lot of conversion kits for the YD2, for the RMX, and this is actually one of the newer parts for the Usukani chassis. If I have it correct, the PDSH. I don't know if you have any. Do you have any experience with the Usukani chassis? I've seen them around sometimes, but
I've never owned one. I've tinkered with a couple, and I've driven a few. They've never really sort of piqued my interest, really, to be perfectly honest. But I've not really been a fan of Usukani stuff, to be perfectly honest.
When the chassis first came out, to me it looked really interesting because of the super narrow design.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the upgrades or options that were already included. But I haven't really seen any Usukani chassis on competitions or anything. So I'm very curious to see how they really stack up against the YD2s and the RMXs. But
yeah.
So this is
like I say, I've driven a couple, and to me they seem interesting because you don't see them and they're a bit uncommon. But then, in terms of practicality, if I was going to get something, I'd think I'd rather just have a YD2, or an RMX or something. But
if you do have one, there's option parts now from Razor. This is the rear shock tower. So basically, with all of the stuff, we have a couple more pictures and so on from Razor. Basically, all they try to do is just to add mechanical grip and have parts that are lighter weight than the original stock parts. So for this one, it will be the exact same thing, like more options in terms of where you put the upper links, where you put the dampers, so you can have more grip. And probably also quite lightweight. You can see that it's been milled, just like the Revti bumper we saw before.
Yeah.
So you only have the thick parts where you really need it, and on the other bits you just shave it down so it becomes maybe a few grams here and there lighter.
And also it means you can adjust the geometry as well. If you want to use a thick shock tower to give you the rigidity for the dampers, it means you're not necessarily spacing the camber link forward or something like that, or backwards, depending on which way it's mounting on the chassis. But it means you can mill it down to keep the geometry slightly more optimal, I think.
As well as clearance with diff outdrives and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It can get pretty tight sometimes if you have this many options on the shock towers.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm not familiar enough with the chassis or the original chassis to know exactly what's changed. But I did see a post that actually I think they were saying that on camber change, the tire would actually hit the end of the stock shock tower. So they've tweaked it a little bit to make it a bit more usable, which is kind of what you need. You don't want your tire hitting the shock tower for sure.
No, definitely. Yeah, and they have a few more parts. They are coming out with a YD2 top deck.
Yep.
For the YD2 RR, the latest one, if I have it correctly. So the idea with this one, as you can see, it's still a render. So I think this is one of the upcoming parts.
Yeah.
But basically, the idea is to have a one-piece upper deck that goes straight from the front to the gearbox. While normally on the RR you use like a raised bit to sort of connect where normally the top deck ends.
Yeah.
And bridge the gap where the motor was sitting or the gearbox to. So
this will look a lot more neat, I think, for sure. This solution will be a lot more neat than the standard option with the with the extension piece. So yeah, this is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, and also probably a bit more flex as well because you're getting rid of a bunch of screws and bits screwed together.
Yeah,
it's pretty narrow. So yeah, and they also have an updated version of their chassis conversion. Again, this is the same principle, less material, so it's lighter weight, but also a bit more flex, so you have a bit more mechanical grip.
Yeah.
And in addition to this will also be a gearbox for the RMX2 that lets you use YD2 gears.
Yes.
So one of the things that a lot of people seem to struggle with the RMX2 is the gearbox. I think it's actually pretty good if you build it well and maintain it well. But if you want to go for maybe something that's a little bit stronger or a bit more foolproof, let's say, the YD2 gears are a good option. So now you can sort of mix and match to whatever you need.
Yeah, I was also wondering, it looks like there's a few more options for positions of things on this as well. So I'm not sure if there's different, I'm just trying to work out if there's extra suspension mount holes on that, or whether it's standard, or if there's any option to. I'm guessing with the slots are maybe for the battery mounts. So you get the option to slide the battery forward and back. I'm assuming. I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I'm sure I saw David in chat, so you can maybe clarify if I'm wrong there. But yeah, it looks like
I know the old version, the old bunch of different holes for the battery mount. So I think it's a good assumption to think that that's now been converted to a bunch of slots, so you can really slide it forward and backwards. At least it looks a lot cleaner this way.
Yeah, it looks nice. Sticking with their sort of thin aesthetic with the skinnier decks, I think it looks really good. Yeah,
so this is all new from Razer, so probably the gearbox and a bunch of other stuff we showed will be available soon.
Yeah, do we know when they're coming out, or is it just as soon?
I'm not sure. I think it's soon.
Okay.
So just keep an eye on the Facebook and ask David, so he can probably tell you exactly what's going on.
Well, next up, we got a new one from MST.
It's not drifting.
No, it's not. It's not aimed for drifting. I'm sure it's usable.
Yeah. So this is the new J4 body, as they call it. It's based on the Suzuki Jimny. At least that's what I recall from it.
Yeah.
And it's for the CMX and CFX chassis, but this is the shorter wheelbase version. So it's a 242 mil wheelbase, just like the older version of the Jimny they had on the MST chassis already. And one thing I really like the new Jimny. I think you do as well, right, James?
I love it.
Yeah, they look so cool. But also the reason why I wanted to put this in the news is because, well, since most of the tracks are closed now anyway because of the coronavirus situation, at least here in the Netherlands, this would be a good thing to get out of the house with, go for a walk.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of drift
in.
guys that have crawlers and scaling gear and rigs and stuff. So I think it's very cool. And like you say, I'm a huge fan of the Jimny. I actually very nearly bought one as my daily driver because I love it so much. It was only because it was just a bit too slow. It was sort of dangerously slow, which I didn't want to do. But yeah, I absolutely love them. I love them to look at. And actually, R31 House have a Jimny body as well, which I couldn't find a picture for when I was looking before. But there's plenty of people using them on drift chassis. So I think the scale is going to be slightly different. But with the, like Tijs pointed out before we went live, the Addiction chassis, this would be pretty much perfect to go on. And I'm sure you can make this work on an M chassis, no problem at all. So the new wrap-up M chassis or any of the old conversions that people have used in the past. But I think that's badass. So someone's asking in chat, it's which scale it is. It's 1/10.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it's not exact scale, but it's for their 1/10 off-road crawler. So yeah, it obviously these are just renderings. This isn't coming out till later in the year. I think it's Q3 they said, which I assume is because they're allowing for the shutdowns and stuff that are going on at the moment. Because normally they're pretty quick to get stuff out once they've shown renders, or they frequently are quick to get stuff out. But yeah, this looks wicked. I'm assuming the snorkel is going to be a sort of detachable item. I can't see how they could mold that, but as we say, it's just a render at the moment. But I think that looks badass. And if anyone could turn that into a drift chassis, I'd be well happy. I think that's or drift body. I think that would look wicked.
Yeah, and it's pretty much what they did with the old Jimny as well, where I think that one was based on the Tamiya body shell, but they added a bunch of extra stuff like indeed the snorkel and the bumpers and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I think it's gonna look great.
But
I kind of want one.
yeah. They've recently brought out the EK9 body for the TCR, and I really want one of those as well. Big fan of Honda stuff, so yeah, I think that'd be very cool. But David saying all parts are available for order for the Razor stuff.
So, there you go.
So check them out on Facebook. I'll add a link after this is after we're done live, and I'll put that in the description below. Apparently the RMX conversion actually works for the RMX 1 as well, I believe. I believe that's what he said anyway.
I think that was the case with the old version as well. So that that probably also explains some of the extra you see.
Yes,
so you can use both.
That would make sense.
I'm pretty sure that might mean you can also do a bit of a mix and match if you wanted to.
Yeah. So I guess that's it for the news for this week. I'm sure there's been other stuff that we've missed, but unfortunately, with all the shutdowns, there's not too many products being launched that we've seen, and there's a few things coming up that I'm aware of, but they're not ready to be announced just yet. So hopefully in the next week and the next couple of weeks we'll have some more, but also more stuff's going to shut down, so maybe it'll balance out and be quiet still.
We don't know really.
So in the meantime, anyway,
week by week now.
Yeah, for sure. In the meantime, we ask you guys to share your projects while you're on self-isolation and working from home and all of that stuff. We specifically were asking for body photos this week. A bunch of people sent us chassis stuff anyway, which we've mostly ignored, but there's a couple we've brought up just because they're kind of cool. And also, just a quick one, we've had to ignore quite a lot of photos that were sent to us purely because we got sent too many, as you can imagine. And also a bunch of people sent us really small photos which are not really usable, and a bunch of people also just sent us photos of bodies that I know they've been running for 6 months or longer, whereas what we're specifically looking for is what are you working on at the moment. While you're at home and you're not at work, what are you doing with your RC drift life? That's what we're looking for when we're asking for these pictures at the moment. So if you want to send stuff in, please feel free, but send us stuff that's new, or at least even if you've just finished it, that's okay, but not something you've been using forever. That's not what we're after. But first up, we're going to go with Ritchies GRK, which again, this is one of the smaller photos we were sent. But he basically has got hold of a GRK4 recently, which I believe might be the one that Simon Baker recently sold. And he's built it, which is kind of cool because this is definitely on my list of upcoming chassis that I want a GRK4. They're very cool. Pete Gray's just got one recently, and I was having a good look around it. And as I think I've said before, I drove a few on my last trip to Japan, and they kind of made me want one pretty bad, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, just before we basically shut down everything, I also Davies GRK4. he built a red one.
Yep.
And it really looks good. There's so much stuff included.
Yeah.
I was a bit surprised by some of the play on some of the parts.
Yes.
But I think that's just a matter of shimming it correctly and you're
Yeah.
good to go. Which is something you probably have to do with most chassis anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe not all, but
I think maybe these are a bit like some wrap-up stuff where it just needs a bit more than you'd expect. But if you know that you need plenty of shims, you just make sure you have them in. But yeah, so I think this is going to turn into a pretty cool build. I don't know what his plans are for it. I'm hoping that he's going to have some pretty nice electrics in there with a nice body and just rip it, because standard GRKs run really well. It's like it's one of, I think one of the biggest improvements we've had in RC drifting in the last 3 or 4 years is that kits, settings out of the box are now good. Whereas when it used to be, you got a chassis and whatever, settings that the manual told you to build it to with turnbuckle lengths and damper settings and things, they were kind of useless. They were a real sort of base point that almost didn't work anywhere. You had to be almost on a specific track for it to even be usable. And so it used to be that I'd build a chassis and just ignore the settings and build it so that the geometry was how I knew I was going to end up needing it, or thought I was going to end up needing it. Whereas now I always start with a box settings because they're good and it's a good starting point. And then yes, you might want to widen the track or do something else with it, but you're going to start off from a much further position down the line than you would if you just ignored it and tried to do it yourself. No matter how experienced you are, I think it's definitely the way to go. So I'm hoping Ritchie's built that, as the box says, because standard they're amazing. I think they're even better than an RMX or a YD2 out of the box for me. Just in terms of front geometry, it's really nice for sure.
That makes me very curious to see Davy's chassis run once it's done.
Yeah,
and I like that he went for a black one, because to me that just looks super clean. Even though everything's aluminium, I like the sort of understated look.
Yeah, actually, and one of the things one of the things I will say about the GRK is I think they're a nice looking chassis, but in person I think they're a little bit underwhelming. There's not really any sort of nice details on the aluminium. There's a slightly chamfered edge, but it's pretty basic. It reminds me of the RER in terms of it's just sort of, water cut or whatever process it is. It's basically just plates with a slight chamfer on. But I think they're a nice base, and you can make them look nice by putting your own touches on for sure. Anyway, next up we've got Rob's. He's building a fantasy. Rob Nick.
Curious combination, this one.
Yeah,
the pretty standard YD2, but the completely crazy fancy 2 front suspension on it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's getting similar on the rear. I've driven a couple of these, and they're pretty interesting. I think Haroon ran the rear suspension on his for a while, and he was
also at the Worlds last year.
Yeah, I think he was quite a fan of it, and they seem to be pretty good. I think the quality might not be amazing on these kits. I think it's fine, but I know, and I forget the guy's name, but the guy who created these has sent out quite a few replacement parts to people. So he takes care of people if there's an issue for sure. But I think they look pretty cool. They definitely look crazy. But again, they're a bit more sort of interesting looking than your standard chassis, I think, with these conversions on.
It sort of reminds me of the D-like chassis with the super tall front knuckles and the very high mounted upper arms.
Yeah, for sure.
It does make it look at least a little bit realistic in terms of the front suspension.
Yeah,
it's not a McPherson, but it sort of looks like it, or maybe the 370Z or 350Z front knuckles. They look very similar.
Yeah.
So that's another added bonus. Plus, if it runs pretty good, and I saw some posting that it does this way. So yeah, front suspension, standard YD2 rear. It's a cool little project.
A bit of a different project.
Yes. Yeah, this one's pretty awesome, and it needs some explaining for sure. It's a D4. It's built by Dennis from Berlin, and this basically is going to turn into a cult classic. It's a 6-wheel because it's going to have a Opel Manta body shell on it.
Like this?
Yeah, exactly. From the movie, from the 80s, Manta, their film. And yeah, it's just ridiculous. This is not built to compete for sure.
No.
But this is exactly what you should be doing at these kind of times where you're sitting at
Yeah,
home,
just
a
knock
bit
out that idea
uninspired
that
and
you've
bored.
been thinking about.
Yeah. So I love a project like this. I'm very curious to see how the front end is going to work out, because getting
Yeah.
this right with the different acromens and stuff, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've
and
seen
then
6-wheel drive. I've seen 6-wheel chassis before, but they've been extra rear axles, not front.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah,
this
and
is
then also the body shell itself will probably be a project too, because getting the six wheel to look good
yes,
from a standard Lexan body shell is going to be tricky too. But ambitious, but super fun project.
yeah, and why
Um,
not?
yeah, why
Give it
not?
a go.
Yeah, I mean it's a D4, so it's also very inexpensive, um, and a relatively okay base to drive with.
Yeah,
So yeah, why not?
yeah, and like you say, it's never going to be a competition winning chassis, so it kind of doesn't really matter what the base is. It's whatever you've got lying around or can get hold of cheap enough, I think. But anyway, as we said before, we were sort of mainly interested in bodies this week because we talked a lot about chassis last week. But another oddball body that we were sent, this time from Sweden.
Yes, this is from Matthias, or I think he's also known as RC Linked on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And he likes to build crazy body shells. I think at the Worlds he had the Deux Chevaux, the Citroen
Yes,
2CV. Yeah, and then there's been a Beetle in the past, and another crazy pickup, and then this one.
Do you know what
It's
it is?
it's a Parma body shell that I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly the model is. I think Parma just calls it hot rod pickup or something. They made a bunch of these back in the 90s, and this body survived somehow, new and pack, until Matthias got his hands on it.
Yeah.
He's been chopping it up a little bit to make it fit on the chassis. It's cool that it's on an FXX, so it has the front motor, so it sort of is correct to the body shell. But yeah, as you can see, it's been hacked up quite a bit to fit the front motor, the rear ESC. And
it looks like he's doing front motor, rear ESC, so he's going to have some long ass wires. And is that
yeah,
a
definitely.
battery tray as well? High mount battery? Because that could be pretty crazy.
Yeah, he likes the crazy build, so I'm curious to see what this is going to turn out into. Maybe in a couple of weeks, some people can actually send the finished pictures of whatever they're building at the moment.
Yeah, so absolutely. If anyone can send us some updates, it's definitely worth doing. If we don't get a chance to cover them because we're covering other things, we'll definitely give them a shout out on social media somewhere. Because I think it's super cool to see some progress, especially on something like this that I've never seen before. I wasn't aware this body even existed. It's way before my time, I think.
Maybe that's something to add at some point. Which, if anyone wants to know if a particular car exists, then feel free to ask me, because I probably know.
Yeah. Well, moving on. Something in no way less interesting, but a little bit more predictable. We've got Arno's R32, the Pandem, I think it is.
It is, yeah. With the Tamiya spoiler on the back, which apparently fits pretty good. So that's good to know for anyone who wants to go the GTR route with the Pandem body shell.
Yeah, these are pretty wide bodies, if I remember right. I can't remember the exact width, but I know they're not small anyway.
I think they're around 200.
I'm pretty sure I saw him in chat. What colour is this going? Or is that a bit of a secret? Let us know, because
it's probably going to be a custom mix with the airbrush anyway. That's what it likes to.
But is it going to be
everything's been?
Is it going to be a custom mix trying to mimic an actual Skyline color, or is this going to be crazy colors or something?
I think I heard him mention midnight purple, but which one I don't know.
It's the correct color. Any midnight purple apart from, is it 3, the flip paint? Whichever one is the flip paint is not for me, but the rest of them I love. Particularly number 2.
Flip paint,
yeah. But yeah, I think that's very cool. But unfortunately, I only have the one picture of it. But it does look very cool, and I've seen a couple of these done, and they do look wicked.
Another one to see in a few weeks.
Yes,
how it's turned out.
Yeah, for sure. He needs to send us some updates. Next up, we've got Rob from America with a very nice JZX, which I think is the HPI version from the looks of it.
It looks pretty wide, yeah.
But with the now pretty rare hamburger decal set, it just looks super clean. It's a very nice very nice setup, I think, with the OD wing and the CRK eyes. I think that's
wrap up lights, and he also told me that he cut out every single part of the clear part of the decals, so even in between the letters and stuff, so you cannot really tell that it's a big decal, basically.
yes.
That
does it
makes a lot of work, but
it makes a big difference when you do these, and actually it makes it in a lot of cases it makes it a lot harder to put these decal sheets on, because they're much easier to tear when you cut out the strength and the support between the thin air. Or, you know, if you only leave a thin area. I've done this a couple of times myself, and it's not that easy to do. So if he's pulled it off, good job, man, because it's tricky for sure.
To me, it always makes it easier, actually, because if you have any sort of weird curves to go around with less material, it's much easier to stretch.
Yeah, I think that's also true, but I think it makes it simpler to fit, but then easier to really mess up.
True. It's not the easiest way, that's for sure.
But yeah, it's a sort of straightforward looking body, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and I also have one I still want to build. I think I showed the lights a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
I actually pulled those out and put them on the shelf this week to see what I can do with this body shell. But
yeah, just to
it's in the queue.
Make you look at it every day.
Exactly, inspiration time.
Put it in front of you, and then you have to think about it. We've got. I'm just going to put up Daniel's. I think it's an M2. Yes, it's an M2.
Yeah.
This is A Plastics, is it? This body?
The AP Plastics or A
Yeah.
Plastics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think Vivian has also built one or two of these, and they actually look pretty good. I think we have another one coming up as well. But he's actually not building this, but he's building a M3 version. So also the Eurofighter one, but then for Asif.
That'd be very cool.
It'll look pretty similar probably, but
this looks very cool. Paint job looks awesome, and I think it's it must be the Camaro D theme for this year, because next up we also have one of Chili's builds with a very similar sort of graphic design. I think these are all Zero Max graphics. Yes, I can see the logo, but they look. Yeah, this looks pretty cool, man. It's an interesting shaped body to me, because it looks like it's got super short front and rear, like I think we talked about before with the GT86, which in theory makes it superb for competition, but I think for me makes it a little bit tricky to drive because it's so different to what I'm used to. But yeah,
to me it just makes it look tall, because you have such a short overhang on the front and the rear.
Yeah,
the roof sort of is the thing that stands out.
Yeah, and it also makes the front very steep. Yeah, but yeah. So anyway, speaking of Chili, this is a body that he bought off me. This the D-Max Sylvia, the Yokoi replica. I bought it.
Puzzle with a million pieces.
I bought it, saw how many pieces were in the box, knew I wasn't going to have time to do a decent job on it, so I sold it to him probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, and he's just got around to doing it. This is competition body for 2020. Assuming we get more competitions in the UK in 2020 and they're not all cancelled forever. But yeah, I think this looks wicked, and I think he's done a pretty good job. He's done a bit of experimenting, I think, with paint colors and stuff like that. And it's not apparent from that picture, or even this one, but he's actually gone for a clear body. But I think that looks wicked, particularly with the orange OD wheels. I think that's a very cool look. But yeah, he's gone for the clear center section on the body, which is a bit of a throwback to the sort of retro show scene, I guess. Not retro, maybe from about 10 years ago. That was a super cool thing that people used to do on full scale cars, because it was incredibly difficult and expensive to get Lexan bonnets made. And yeah, it's kind of, but I think it looks wicked. I'm well impressed with that. It's funny because when I saw that body, I was like, it needs a big wing. But actually, when you go back to this picture, I think it looks cool with the Dragstar wing.
Yeah, it sort of fits the style. I mean, it's the D-Max body kit, right? And D-Max always seems to have the lower wings or lips or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it really fits the overall shape of the car.
Yeah, but yeah, it should be. I think he's going to do pretty well with that. Hopefully, he doesn't get too. He has a bit of a temper, Shelley, and he hopefully he doesn't just give up on this one or throw it across a car park or something. But Yeah. We got a question from Tyler saying, is there any inexpensive but good for project body shells you guys would recommend? To me, depending on if this is sorry Tyler, I don't know you, so I don't know your experience level, but if you're starting out, cheap bodies is always good. I think it's good just to get the practice in and not try and worry about making a perfect body on your first go. If you've got a bit of experience, inexpensive bodies, Tamiya stuff, to be honest. They're a little bit narrow sometimes, but you can always add over fenders. And actually, I think people for a long time went off Tamiya bodies because they were just standard cars. You know, they're street versions as you get out the factory, and everybody wants stuff like Chili's done here with the crazy DMAC body kits. But actually, a bunch of the sort of Japanese competitors are now going back to using Tamiya bodies, things like the Supra, and just fitting over fenders to them, just to make them fit with the wider setups that they're running. And they're starting to get really good looking again, I think, because it's more of a street style body, which is, to me, the coolest stuff in drifting is always the stuff that is just something that somebody is running every day. And it's not the D1 cars aren't the coolest looking cars to me. It's always the more basic stuff that people have made the effort to make look good, but without using super crazy body kits or graphics or something like that.
I would say go for something that has a lot of parts available for it. So one thing I always struggle with is the details, because painting for me is easy.
Yeah.
But then I always get stuck on wanting the exact right looking lights, mirrors, wings, etc. So if you get something that has all of that already available and you just stick it on and you're done, that is the best. So probably things like Yokomo, for example, where you can get light buckets that fit really well. There's accessories that are specifically made for that particular model of body shell. And they're relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other ones. They're one piece, so that always saves a lot of time and hassle. I mean, ABC hobby bodies are really nice, or something like this S15, but you have a lot of different Lexan pieces you have to sand and make.
And something like this S15 is also very expensive. It depends what you want from a project, but in terms of things like Tijs was saying, the Yokomo bodies, you can get wrap-up lenses for them that make the rear and front lights look a lot better. They're generally wide enough for most setups. Yes, you might want to put over fenders on if you're going crazy wide, but actually for most people you can get away with it. Maybe you've got to trim the arches a little bit, or maybe you just run a bit more camber, but it's not so difficult to get them looking decent. The overdose bodies I'm also a big fan of, but I think it depends what you want. Things like the Masuda JZX90 from Overdose, you know, it's got a particular look. It's the shark fin JZX90 from Formula D. I'm not a big fan of that style, but I think it's a good project because it's not the easiest body to build, but it's not so hard. It's a good mix of being a simple body, you know, it's a two-piece body, but then with a load of stuff you can choose to add, like the shark fin and like the air cleaner and things like that. But they're not essential. So if you don't, you know, if you don't nail it, you don't have to use them. But anyway, so I think that's the other thing was something like a Pandora body. They're relatively cheap. They're quite easy to get hold of, and they have a huge range of, you know, on S15s, they've probably got 4 or 5 S15 options available, and then a couple of S14s when you take into account the Origin Lab and then the standard street version. To be perfectly honest, I've got one here that I'm working on that is just it's the Origin Lab one, and I got hold of it purely because I'm starting to airbrush with airbrush paints, and I need to practice because I'm not going to nail my perfect paint first time. So I've got a couple of Pandora bodies here just to test because they were super cheap. I think I got my S15 for like £19 by the time I got it here. So yeah, it was just a bit of a deal I spotted on clearance a while ago from an overseas shop, so I grabbed it. And the same as I've also got a Toyota Pro Box, which wasn't that cheap. It was maybe £28 or something like that, but it's big slab-sided body that if I mess up the paint, I mess up the paint. I got it because I like Pro Boxes and I saw it, so I had to buy one. But it's it's certainly a project for me. It's never going to be my competition body or something I take to a major championship or something like that. It's just let's slap it together and probably make it roll loads.
The Pro Box is a funny one because probably it's going to be, if you're taking a trip to Japan and you've landed at the airport, it's probably the first car you're going to see in Japan that you haven't seen before anywhere else.
You'll probably see it from the plane window on the tarmac.
Yeah, exactly. They're everywhere.
Yeah, or the AD, the Nissan version.
Yeah, I still want one. They're fun.
Yes, for sure. Somebody needs to have a 20 valve swapped one. That's all I'll say. There's your next project car. Right, anyway, back to where we were. So Craig has sent me some pictures of his. So this is an older body that he's tweaking. He's had this as an initial D replica for a while, and he's put is it D-Craft front flip pop-up lights in it. He did tell me, but
D-Craft,
it slipped my mind. I couldn't remember if it's D-Craft or D-Magic, although I think they're pretty much the same. And he's added a Tetsujin light kit and some wrap-up rear lights and stuff just to mix it up a bit. But he makes some super nice bodies, and he always adds all the details to make them look really good.
This looks good. I think it's not just the D-Craft lights, but lights on the bumper.
Say that again?
If you have the fog lights on the bumper, I think they're also D-Craft. Because if you have the more expensive set, you get the fog lights, which I haven't really seen many people use.
So no, I didn't even know that was an option, to be honest. But yeah, it looks cool. And like I say, he always does super nice bodies. So it's no surprise to see this one looking good. So next up, we've got, I say it's Bob Thorley, but in reality, this is for Sebastian in Germany, who I think you can probably guess where this is going.
Must be the low origin cars, right?
That'd be the one.
Yeah, so this is the Ester Team from Benny Wyman, right? That it's going to be a replica of.
Yes, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I think he told us
it will look like that.
Exactly, that one, yeah. And it's been painted by Tim from Juicy Colors. You know Tim as well.
He's done a super nice job.
He does amazing stuff with the paint. I think it might be hard to see on the stream, but also like the detail around the window trims and stuff looks super good on this one.
Yeah, and even the color on the wheels looks amazing too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess they're MST wheels, the 2-piece.
Yeah, these are the normal and +2 set.
Yes.
You can get.
Yeah.
And there's a second one too, the S15. So this is Dan Joyce's car, the replica, I think. I don't know. I think I forgot who this body was for, but I'm looking forward to seeing these two on track together.
Yeah, it's funny. The low origin stuff has really exploded in the last 18 months. I was in Japan in November 2018, and so was Alex from Low Origin. And every time I was at a track where there was anyone running a Low Origin replica, I would send him a picture, and I think there was 2 on that whole trip. And I got talking to the guys at Aroha, and they were desperate to build them, but they couldn't get hold of the stickers. So I put them in touch, and then all of a sudden, all the guys at Aroha started building them, and then there was a bunch of guys locally, and I saw a video from, I think it was G Circuit yesterday, and there's like 6 of these guys all running. So it's super cool to see, because I think they are the best looking drift cars out there at the moment, including in Japan. I think they've got great graphic designers, and they've got a real eye for what looks cool. So as much as I've seen a lot of them, I think it's cool to always see more.
Someone needs to do a JZX in these colors. I really want to see that. I think that's going to be super cool.
Yeah, I have a sneaky feeling I might be able to send you a picture of one later, because I think that's I think I've seen one of those recently on Instagram, so I'll dig that one out.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then the last one we've got is Martin's.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago we talked about the D110 here in the Netherlands. Best body, we showed a JZX built by Martin, and he always goes crazy with the details, and this is his newest one, or his latest one. Cadillac CTS-V, which is a bit of an oddball car as well.
Yep.
I don't think many people actually even think about the Cadillacs as drift cars, even though there's two in Formula D. They're ATS-Vs, but pretty similar. But yeah, as you can see with this one, he's also going again with detail in the rear, with all the cutouts in the windows and the trunk, and adding a fuel cell. And I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know who makes this body?
I'm not sure actually. I saw one for the first time a few days ago. The same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Martin can tell us afterwards where he got it from. But yeah, I think it actually looks really good.
Yeah.
It sort of makes me think it might be a killer body shell, seeing how the details are pretty crisp and fitting, and it's not a crazy body kit or anything.
No.
But,
it does look really nice,
yeah.
and every body I've ever seen him do looks amazing.
Yeah.
Even when it's not quite my style or something like that, like the finish is perfect.
Yeah, and he usually paints them on the outside, so I have a feeling that this will not be the definitive color, but
no,
he's just painting them.
This is definitely
gray
a base
on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like primer or metal or something once you actually accidentally scratch off some of the paint on the outside.
Yeah.
So it feels more realistic that way. So yeah, I'm also curious to see the end result of this one. So just like all the others, I hope everyone will send in some pictures.
It's funny, every time I see anything in progress from Martin, I always wonder, is he just going to do a simple one? Is this just going to get slapped together and it's just going to go one easy color? But then, as you say, in the other picture, there's already a fuel cell in there and the windows look like they've been cut, and there's plans afoot for sure. There's definitely a rear vent maybe or something going in that rear window, or that's just been cut to make it, to make it look like there's access for the fuel cell. But it's it'd be very cool to see how this ends up. So yeah, we need more progress pictures on this one.
Exactly. This is definitely not the final look of the car for sure.
No. But it does look like it will sit super low as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I've been busy as well, actually. Yeah. I've also been building Pandora body shells.
Yes.
I did the JZX 100 Oregon, but the old one, the more narrow one. But I ran out of masking tape, so that's that's a problem.
Yeah, you want to get some ordered quickly before that's not an option.
Yeah, I have some on order from Tetsujin with the police car body shell that we talked about in the previous episode.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will arrive soon.
Is that shipped?
Not yet.
Okay.
So we'll see. It's EMS, so usually it's quick, but we'll see.
Yeah. Now I've been working on my Origin S15. I say working on. I've basically cut it out, masked it, and then can't decide on colors. Can't decide on what to do. So it's sat there for most of the last week, just doing nothing because I'm completely stumped. I wanted to do it as a really simple, straightforward street car, and then I look at it and I'm like, oh, man, this would be good to do like something crazy. And my plan, the reason I'm trying to do airbrushing is because I've got a design from Bauka that I want to do for my competition body, which is quite complicated and not that easy with lots of different layers and masks and stuff. So part of me thinks maybe I should just give it a punt and try and make it work, and then see how bad I can mess it up.
Go for it, I would say, right?
But then part of me is also like, but then it'd be really nice to just do a simple street body, because I haven't done a simple street body in a while. So I'm torn. I have to decide. What I might do is a simple street body with that one and then something crazy on the next one. But it's, yeah, I've been a bit indecisive this week. I've been a bit busy with a few things. So hopefully by next week I'll have some more progress. Or I'll have messed it up and we won't talk about it ever again.
Yeah, hopefully for me, I just have my masking tape.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I cannot do much.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a Wreck-It Sideways team body. So colors, they're pretty straightforward. It's
already decided.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna add a bit of a twist on this one. I like to do that with all of them, so you can sort of pick them apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see how it ends up. It's gonna be a lot of liquid mask, final cut, everything.
Cool. Have you set it on the body on your chassis yet?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And is it wide enough?
It is wide enough. The wheelbase is a bit on the long side, so that's tricky. But I measured it out, and it should be all right.
Cool.
Probably with like the arms spaced as far apart as possible, but
yeah,
should be fine.
Be able to make it work.
Yeah.
Richie was asking in chat, where can he send larger photos? If anyone wants to send photos in, the best thing to do is to send them to the RC Drift Pace Facebook page, which is a link below. you may not get an answer from me straight away if I see your messages just sending me pictures, because I don't really I don't need them until Monday when I'm starting to set up for Tuesday's show. So I will get back to you when I can, but just fire them over. Worst case, we don't end up using them if we're busy or if it doesn't fit with the rest of the show. But we're really grateful for everyone that sends in photos, because it gives us something interesting to talk about when there's not so many new products being announced. And it's really good. I think for me, I really like being able to see what everyone's up to, because as you can see, even from the stuff we've looked at tonight, there's such a wide mix from, crazy hot rod pickups to D-Max S15s and everything in between. So I think it's super cool to see, and I like to see everyone and the progress people are making as well, because it's interesting to me to see people painting bodies that I've seen their body shells 3, 4, 5 years ago, and there's such a huge improvement in skill and effort, and the level of fit and finish is so much better than it used to be, and it sort of inspires me to put the effort in and do more and try not to be so crap with my own bodies. So yeah, for me it's a really positive thing to see.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to get out of all of this, that people are a bit inspired to go and build stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't go anywhere. You might as well be doing something positive for your hobby.
Exactly, and as long as the postman is still delivering stuff, then just order a body shell, order some paint, and
that's a masking tape.
Yeah, don't forget the masking tape. Very important.
Yeah, man. I've just posted up just put the Pace merchandise store up there. I've had a few orders in it last week, so thanks to everyone that's ordered. Awesome. As far as I know, they're still producing them and shipping them as you order them. There's no delays. A couple of guys ordered them last week and had them actually crazy fast. They had them within a day or two, I think. So yeah, so thanks again for all the support with that. And once again, any profit that comes from that is just going to get pumped into trying to make this a better thing, a better show every week, and let us invest in a bit more technology and basically keep it coming. It's the plan, which will be good. But I think that's just about us for this week, unless there's anything you need to latch on to the end there, Tijs, that we've missed.
Not really. Stay home if you can. Wash your hands.
Yes.
Any of those important messages.
I was going to say, and just follow the advice of the government and don't ignore them thinking it doesn't apply to you, because this is actually a pretty serious time. So yeah, it's a good time to actually pay attention and do what you're told, instead of thinking that you don't need to. So yeah, but we'll be back. We'll be back next week, hopefully with some more product news, and we'll definitely be featuring some more projects. And even if it's not a project that you guys have got, I would say if you've got an event, but obviously we won't be having any events at the moment. But if there's upcoming events that are planned for later down the line, let us know about them. And if even if it's maybe not quite RC Drift related, as long as it's not too far unrelated, or if it's something we find cool, just send it to us and we may end up talking about it. It's never a bad thing to have lots of stuff to discuss, is it?
No, exactly. Just send in whatever you want to share, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Either with us or on the stream.
Well, with that, we'll end it here. So thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.